Howdy. How's your man and them? Calix back after about a week. Just been running crazy. Been running crazy. It's been one of those weeks where, just trying to keep it together. But we're back with another podcast. Enough about me. We're back with another podcast, and we're going to be here talking about boxing. Hope everybody's doing well. Here from the comfy, cozy studios in South Louisiana, down in the swamps. And also want to let you know, by this time next year, I will be in another studio. And this, fellas, just wait till y'all see this studio. I'm just telling you, I'm just warning y'all right now. Just wait till about May of next year, probably about 10 months from now. Just wait till you see this new studio I got working on. Because right now, what you're viewing is me in my son's bedroom with one of his neon lights behind me, and he's got like a picture he drew of Zion Williamson. That's what I'm working with right now. Humble beginnings, but wait till y'all see this new studio next year. Just wait to see. Just wait to see. You may have sharks swimming in the background behind my podcast by next year. I'm just saying, that's the type of stuff you're likely going to see. Shout out to Wheelchair Man John in the building. What's up to you, Serge? Morning to you. Good morning to you. Good morning to you. Wealthy. We're going to talk several things today. I'm going to ask for help from the chat. What do you want to talk about? Because some of the things that I want to talk about may not be things that you want to talk about. So I want to ask you right off the bat, do you want to talk about how bad Manny Pacquiao looked over the weekend, getting touched up a little bit by an Asian kickboxer, I think is who he fought. So maybe we don't see the Matteo Barrios fight coming up this fall, title fight for Manny Pacquiao. Maybe that squashes all of our dreams about Manny Pacquiao coming back and being a title holder at an advanced age and coming back. Canelo, Berlanga. Should we talk about that? Should I just let it go? Should we just let this go? Should we just let this go, fellas? Should we just not talk about it? Should we just let it go? Should we talk about it? So in the chat, I'll be asking, do you want to talk about Canelo versus Berlanga? Just my thoughts on it. Just my overall general thoughts on Canelo versus Berlanga. Should we talk about it? So just put in the chat as the show goes on. If you're there, do you want me to talk about that? Bud versus Madrimov is this Saturday. Riyadh season invades LA. Good card. Whether it's pay-per-view worthy or not at the top, I don't know, but good card. Good betting odds, some value. So I'll just drop some value that I've seen as far as the betting odds that I think I see anyway, and give my overall thoughts on Bud versus Madrimov. And is there any chance of Madrimov pulling off the upset against Bud? Bud who walks on water and Bud who is unhittable, all this stuff, right? But can he pull off the upset against Bud Crawford at 154 and upset all the apple carts that people are trying to produce out there? It's y'all ever seen the commercial falling prices? Walmart falling prices. Walmart, we got falling prices as far as ticket sales because they slashed those suckers in half. They're still discount. Look, y'all get y'all's discount codes out there because they're flying everywhere. Discount code, discount code, discount code. I'm hearing dudes telling me I'm getting comp tickets. They're going to try to fill that place, but I'm telling you. And then they're going to lie about the live gate. They're going to lie about the live gate too. They're slashing prices. And we're going to talk about how power brokers are terrible. Absolutely awful. Absolutely awful, awful, awful. About putting fights where they belong and also building up a fight, like building up a matchup that they want in the future. Marinating, that's the word. They're terrible at marinate. They love doing it. They love marinating, but boy, are they terrible at doing it. Boy, are they terrible. Let's see what we got. Oscar De La Coca trying to sabotage the Stevenson Zepeda. I bet he is. And let it go if you're just going to complain. Chicano doesn't want me to complain. I'll do a little bit of complaining, though. And I'll not go too far. I'll not go too far. Just a little bit today. Just a little bit of today. Yeah. Team Davis not. Let me ask y'all a question off the bat. Speaking of Oscar De La Coca, did y'all see the 180 he did with Turkey Al-Sheikh? He was saying a couple months ago, nobody comes into LA without my permission. This is a no-fly zone. Nobody comes in. This is my town. This is my town. Nobody does anything. And then I'm watching over the weekend and Oscar's holding hands with Turkey Al-Sheikh. I love it. Nobody loves holding hands with grown men more than Turkey Al-Sheikh. I'm going to tell y'all that. And I'm going to ask y'all once again in the chat. If a dude promised you a bag, if he promised you quite a bag, a life-changing bag possibly, would you hold hands with him in public? Mr. T, what's your answer to that? Mr. T, would you hold hands with another grown man in publicly, not private, don't privately, publicly, would you hold hands with him if he offered you a life-changing bag? Because Turkey, and I'm not even sure, people are telling me it's a culture thing. I've never seen Saudi dudes walking around holding hands with other grown men, but Turkey loves to do it. So it may be a Turkey thing, it may be a Saudi thing. I don't mean to disrespect anybody's culture, but I've never seen so much grown man hold handing in public that I've seen going on with this Riyadh season thing. And it's just hilarious to me seeing these dudes, these boxing promoters, and I love it. Seeing the boxing promoters being put into a cuck position. That's what they're becoming in front of our eyes, simps, and they're becoming in front of our eyes brokers and not. Y'all realize that's happening, right? They're no longer, they're losing the promoter image. They don't promote anything anyway. But they're losing that. They're shedding that, and they're becoming brokers / cucks. And they're holding hands with Turkey Al-Sheikh. They'll talk all kind of crazy business when he's not around, but when he's around, all of a sudden we see him, they're holding hands with the dude. I don't know. Like Dana White's out there holding hands with them. So Mr. T says his soul can't be purchased. His soul can't be purchased. He's not going to hold hands with a grown man in public. So would I hold, if a dude offered me 7 figures, Mr. T, would I hold hands with him in public? Possibly. I don't know. Quite possibly. Quite possibly. I got a lot to say about that. And, you know, I think Carlos wants to hear what I have to say about Canelo. So if y'all want to hear what I have to say about Canelo Berlanga, let me know. Let me know. Just let me know. What do we want to do with that? And Mr. T says, hell no, he doesn't want to hear about it. So we got 2 no's so far and a yes. So let me know. Bud versus Madrimov, betting odds, the card. And it's a good card. This is a good undercard. Compared to what we've gotten in the past, the recent past, it's a really good undercard, actually. Isaac Cruz is fighting Rayo Valenzuela, and Isaac Cruz, all 4'11" of him, because they tell me he's like 5'5". But I saw him on a 3 knockdown rule, and I saw him with the picture next to Mario Lopez, and Mario Lopez is listed as 5'9". And Mario Lopez is a full, unless Mario Lopez is standing on top of something, or maybe Isaac was standing, maybe there's a step right here. I don't know, but it looked to me like Isaac Cruz is a full foot shorter than Mario Lopez. So he's not 5 foot, but that doesn't take away what he's doing as a fighter. And we got another yes, right? We got another yes. So things are tied right now. Things are tied. Isaac Cruz, pressure fighter. He's been on the gravy train. Let's be honest about that, fellas. He's been on the gravy train. And Isaac Cruz is the greatest pressure fighter that ever lived right now. He is the new Marciano. He is the little Mexican Marciano right now. Um, there's a hype train going around surrounding Isaac Cruz, in my opinion, and I think it's because he's um, indirectly attached or directly attached to Tank Davis, indirectly attached to Tank Davis's resume and aura as a whole. And because of that, they have to, it's part of the Tank Davis theorem. They have to prop up Isaac Cruz. And that's what we got going here. And we've got another soft touch. This should be a soft touch for Isaac Cruz. Isaac Cruz is minus 430. So they give Rayo some credit here. But this is something that Isaac Cruz, in my opinion, should walk through. He should get a stoppage here. And I think he will. I think he will. The stoppage is minus 150. I think that's the play. He should get a stoppage here. The openings will be there for Isaac Cruz. He does fight like a pit bull. He is a fun fighter to watch, unless he's stunk out. But he is a fun fighter to watch. I don't buy the hype like other people are buying it. All that being said, you will have a percentage of fight fans showing up to see Isaac Cruz. He is building a base to watch him fight in LA. And this could be a banana peel fight for him, being that we see what's being set up, right, fellas? We see what it is, right? That's exactly what it is, Mr. T. Like it's because he went the distance. He went the distance. Remember Rocky? If I could just go the distance. And Isaac Cruz went the distance with Tank. And it's his whole resume. It's his whole resume. Is that one fight where he was allegedly robbed against Tank Davis. But the whole play, this is the problem that I have with Isaac. Everybody asks me, what's your problem with Isaac? Lunatoon Boxing is telling me yesterday, can you please stop with the Isaac slander? Can you please stop? It's the nauseating stuff, fellas. And he's fun to watch, and I want to like the dude, but his whole aura has been, look, this one fight he fought Tank, it was supposed to be a guy coming up, and Tank was supposed to destroy him, and then Isaac, to his credit, coming up in weight, fought better than he was supposed to, and it was a close fight. So, what they've done since, so it's like, okay, good. We got something now with this Isaac Cruz guy. I like, this is good. But then what happens? It's like nothing. Nothing happens. And they've obviously been putting him in position to build him up for a Tank Davis rematch at some point. He doesn't want to fight Shakur. He doesn't want to fight Ryan because he's above a Ryan fight for some reason. And they've been building up for a couple years, marinating this whole Tank versus Pitbull rematch. Because Tank's team was out there saying, and they'll even tell you, certain demographics, man, like they'll tell you. It's them saying it. Black versus black doesn't work as far as pay-per-views. We need a brown fighter. And you can see it up and down Tank's resume up until the Frank Martin fight. They like fighting Hispanic fighters. They think it does better on pay-per-view numbers. So the goal has been to build Pitbull Cruz up as something I don't think he really is, to be another Tank opponent in a rematch and try to get some pay-per-view buys out of that and get Tank an easier fight than Shakur, Zepeda, Lomachenko, etc. And to their credit, they wanted the Lomachenko fight, it looks like anyway, in November. But instead of fighting Shakur, Zepeda, what are they going to do? They're going to go right back to the Pitbull Cruz well. And that's where we're at. So Pitbull Cruz is set up to win this fight. That's what it is. It's easy. Pitbull Cruz is set up to win this fight. It's just a matter of, is it knockout? Is it decision? I think he gets to Rayo halfway through this fight. So that's that. I like stoppage. Pitbull Cruz minus 150. Andy Ruiz Jr. minus 370 is coming in with his butt tattoo against Big Baby Miller. Big Baby Miller is who he is. If Andy Ruiz Jr. has anything left, if he has anything left, fellas, he needs to win this fight, and he should win this fight. People are saying this is going to be an entertaining fight. I tend to think it's going to be a little bit of a stinker. that turned sloppy. But then when it turned sloppy, much like we just saw with Joe Joyce versus Chisora, that was a sloppy fight, but it was fun. I enjoyed the hell out of the fight. It was a train wreck. Chisora upsets Joe Joyce. This is another possible upset if Andy Ruiz Jr. doesn't show up. He's minus 370 favorite, but I like the chalk here. I like Andy Ruiz Jr. to win this fight. I'm not sure how and why am I not sure how and if he wins the fight is because we don't know who these guys are. They just simply don't fight. So I don't know even who Andy Ruiz Jr. is anymore. So, but I'll pick him to win. Jared Anderson. Another big baby. Two big babies on this card. Jared Anderson versus Martin McCauley. And this is the upset special from a lot of people. I don't agree. McCauley's 20-1, 15 KOs, so he's a puncher too. Jared Anderson's a puncher as well. I tend to think that Jared Anderson is going to have openings here and take care of business against McCauley. I don't know how, once again. McCauley's a wild card. He's been in there with guys, but he's a wild card. And Jared Anderson has all the ability in the world. It's what Jared Anderson shows up. Which one? Is it the Jared Anderson who wants to retire at 27 years old? And this isn't an X's and O's fight. It's not he drops his right hand and the left hand will be there and body punch. It's not that type of fight. It's what mindset, what mentality are we going to see from Jared Anderson? Are we going to see the guy that boxing writers were saying this is the best American heavyweight prospect since Riddick Bowe? Or are we going to see the guy that he's so uninteresting because he wants to retire at 27 years old, so we don't have a storyline, so we have to focus on his dog named Azul for every segment during ESPN's broadcast of his fight? Which one? Are we going to see the guy that was crying in front of Roy Jones saying, I don't want these abilities. Give them to somebody else. I don't want this. I didn't ask for this. Are we going to see the guy that we thought walked through that door and was the best American prospect since Riddick Bowe? I think we'll get somewhere in the middle, and I think that's still good enough to beat McCauley. I do. I'm not on this upset train. But one thing about these Riyadh season cards is you do get upsets, fellas. You do get upsets. And this is what happens when you have proper cards. That's what happens in proper sports is you have closer odds and you get these 3-1, 4-1 upsets. It's what happens. We're so conditioned. We're so used to these 15-1, 14-1, 20-1 main event fights, 10-1, 8-1. We're not conditioned to so many close odds fights. And that's why gambling people, it's why boxing bettors love the Riyadh season cards, is it gives you possible upsets. Speaking of two fights that are not possible upsets, Andy Cruz against Antonio Moran. Moran plus 920 underdog, Andy Cruz 16-1 favorite. So this is what I don't like about Andy Cruz so far, if I can indulge you. Is talented guy, but he steps in the door and off the bat, they're trying to turn him into this Lomachenko figure, right? This great, and he was great amateur fighter, twice per year fighter right off the bat. But if you're fighting twice per year, they have to count. You can't be this prospect over here. All right. When we're talking about you over here, you're a prospect, but then when you're over here, you're a contender. You're one or the other. Are you a prospect or are you a contender? And this is where I'm confused when it comes to Andy Cruz, because these type of fights are not contender fights. These are prospect fights. These are fights in which you treat prospects coming up right around where a Shushu Carrington would be, right? 8-rounder. You put him in there with a guy who has a hell of a chin and has been in there with guys, but has lost with every guy he's been in there with. All the top guys he's been in there with. So with Moran, he's lost to Haney, he's lost to Pedraza, he's lost to Barboza, he's lost to Jermaine Ortiz. Everybody who stepped up with, he's lost. And on top of that, Devin Haney knocked him out. So he has a good chin against some of these other guys, but Devin Haney, don't forget, Devin Haney in the 7th round against Moran knocked him out with an overhand right. He hurt him to the body earlier in the fight. Devin Haney methodically broke down Moran and put him to sleep with an overhand right in the 7th round. And this is Devin Haney, fellas. So Moran is seen as a guy who has some attrition, has been rounds with guys like Ortiz, guys with like Pedraza. So it's a barometer fight. And what I'm asking is, if y'all are treating this guy like already he can be a champion, he's already there. He's already there. All right, we'll step it up. Why is he fighting for the first time in 6 months? If he's still a prospect, prospect should fight more. If he's fighting at the prospect level and fighting prospect competition still, fight him more than every 6 months. Fight him every 2 to 3 months. Why is this only his fourth pro fight? Speed things up. And if you're not, if he's going straight to twice per year fights, you better get him the fights. That's where I'm at. Step it up. Let's get to it. Pick one. Are you prospect or are you contender? If you're prospect, speed up the fights, fight every 2-3 months. If you're contender, get him in there with somebody. Let's go. Pick it. Figure it out. Let's go. Enough with the muddiness. Figure this out. We're losing our patience. At least I am. Morell Jr., he moved up to 175 to chase the Mexican monster, who in actuality isn't a Mexican monster. He's going up to 175. He's fighting Radovic Kalajic, and I'm going to just be completely transparent. I don't know who this guy is. I'm taking chalk here. Morell Jr., 25-1 favorite. He's in there to destroy this guy. He's in there to obliterate this guy. This is the mismatch on the card. Not a fight I'm excited about. And this is another guy who has been chronically mismanaged in Morell Jr. And it speaks to the muddiness of the PBC and the guys over there, how some of those guys can be under the same umbrella, but they have different managers, different shadow promoters, and it makes things confusing. And you have guys within that tent, because we've heard from the PBC for years, is we don't make other promoters rich. We keep everything in-house. Okay, well, get some of these fights in-house made. And Benavidez versus Morell Jr. is one of those. And they're both in the same division. And they're both marketable. And they both like to knock guys out. So make the fight. But instead, they don't make the fight. And we can't blame that on Morell Jr. Why? Because he's the one calling out Benavidez constantly. He's the one saying, I'm leaving 168 to go up to 175 so I can continue to chase this guy. And he's going to knock this guy out. And I'm so confident of that they don't even have methods for this fight. They don't even have a knockout prop bet for this fight. He's going to knock this guy out. But something has to happen. We talked about how Boots fights in Philly for the first time in 6 years, and I'm beside myself because I see 14,000 people in there, and it's like, where has this been? And maybe we get to the point, that point with Morell Jr., where in a future fight, we finally see him in a big fight, and we see, where has this been? How has this taken so long? Why has this taken so long? He's a fun fighter. He's marketable. He speaks both Spanish and English. Learned English, so he could be more marketable. And on top of that, he always speaks about his causes after the fight. He calls guys out directly. He's doing everything right, but the system is not working for him for some reason. And it's frustrating. It's frustrating to watch. There's no reason, fellas, that we can't get Benavidez versus Morell Jr. later this year now. There's no reason. None. I don't care what they brainwash you with. There's no reason that we can't get that fight now. Canelo's not fighting Benavidez. It is what it is with that. Y'all do with that what y'all want. I'm tired of talking about it. But now, on the table, we have two guys in the same weight class, because Morell Jr. could easily go right back down to 168, 175, whatever they want to do, wherever they want to fight it. Benavidez at 175, stay there, and they could easily do that fight. Better BF versus Bivol is not happening till October. Rematch clause, possibly, whatever they want to do. That's going to take a while. Fight each other. But I'm going to hear why they can't, I'm sure. Yeah, it was Calvin Ford that said that they like to fight brown fighters. Crawford is a 10-1 favorite, but for some reason gets all kind of respect for it. Why? It's a fair question that I'm going to answer. I'm going to answer this. Why? Because he's an email champ, because we've never heard of him, because Crawford has been off a year. So I want to say, first of all, that I haven't given Bud a pass for anything. I got Bud, the new Bud superfans, mad at me for things I've said, for saying that he's not a draw. And that's clear as day. It's clear as day. They stacked this card. They put it in a fight city, right? They put all kind of Mexican fighters underneath here. They put it on a weekend where it doesn't have much competition, and the pay-per-view buys are not going to do well. They'll probably lie about them. They'll probably lie about the live gate, how many tickets were comped, what they sold for. It's just not a draw. And I wish it wasn't that way. I wish Crawford was a draw. I wish he was. But it's not the case. He's just not a draw. For whatever reason, it hasn't delivered. It hasn't reached the market. And people have all kind of theories on why that is. Not the most outgoing fighter, hasn't done the best job of marketing himself on social media. And by the way, I'm going to have Jay Chaudhry over tomorrow to speak about stuff like that. NIL, Riyadh season, things he's doing in the boxing world, things he's seeing behind the scenes. This guy has made a ton of correct predictions the past 5 years, a ton of them, on where the boxing world was headed. They came true, and I want to pick his brain on where he thinks the sport will be 5-10 years from now, particularly when it comes to Riyadh season. But it's one of the things he talks about is lying about ratings, lying about pay-per-view buys, and Nielsen ratings being trash, and new metrics that are showing that these numbers, these metrics that they tell you, 1 million viewers, 500,000 pay-per-view buys, all this stuff, it doesn't translate to real things. It doesn't translate to subscriptions. It doesn't translate to endorsement deals. There just aren't fighters with endorsement deals, real endorsement deals out there besides Canelo, Anthony Joshua, etc. And the same thing is true with Bud. It's like, how is this guy not a star? He's knocking everybody out. He's fun to watch. He's from Middle America, but it's not translating. It's not getting through. And I'll talk about the fight in a minute, but just to address this question is, I'm certainly not giving him a pass. And first of all, it's not a 10-1. He's a 7-1 favorite. So compared to other main events, it's about right. It's about where Tank Davis, a typical Tank Davis main event, 6-1, 7-1. A typical Canelo fight has been somewhere between 4-1 to 7-1. So it's right in that wheelhouse. Canelo's fight coming up, he's a 15-1 favorite. And I think that, it has a lot to do with why people have problems with it. So in fairness to Bud, it's a title fight moving up a weight class. And it's against an undefeated fighter, 7-1 underdog. And people like Chilltown Boxing will say that Madrimov is actually being disrespected here as a 7-1. He thinks it should be closer. So you do have people giving Madrimov credit. There is intrigue here because it's something new. He's moving up a weight class to fight Madrimov. And if Bud loses, we all say if Bud loses, it'll be because he stepped up in weight too much. So could 154 be that division? So this is new stuff, in fairness to Bud. But to your point, the issue that I have here with Bud is I don't want to hear the excuses, man. Like, you're a year off. You were a year off 2 days ago. A year off. So the reason that fighters can't get marketability, the reason that fighters have to slash their ticket prices and they don't have the endorsement deals is for reasons like that. If you're a fighter and you're not fighting, why would anybody care about you? You have to be in people's faces. You have to be fighting if you're a fighter. And if you're not, and in between fights, if you're not out there actively promoting yourself for months at a time, then people are going to forget about you. People are going to forget the Errol Spence fight. And that's why the pay-per-view buys are going to be what they're going to be. And by the way, I don't even believe that Bud versus Errol did 650,000 pay-per-view buys. I don't believe it. I don't think it did. I don't think it did. I don't think that fight did 650,000 pay-per-view, but I don't think it did a $20 million live gate. I think they're lying through their teeth. And a lot of people are going to be surprised when they see numbers that I think they're still lying about, but they're lower than they expected. They'll be surprised by that, but they shouldn't be. They shouldn't be. Because a year off, man, just think of all the things that are happening in that year. Not just the fighters that are fighting, fellas, but take this. Just take this. Take this example real quick to hold up the class, but take this example. October 12th. Let's assume that Turki Al-Sheikh holds hands with a bunch of guys, kumbaya, and they're walking in the park, and Turkey's walking with a couple promoters, and they're all holding hands, and they're talking about fights. And let's stack some cards, guys. Let's put this promotional outfit against this one, and they're holding hands, right? They're just holding hands, and they're strolling and looking at the birds. But when they're doing it, they're talking business, right? And then they get into the boardroom, and in between writing things down, they're holding hands and they're talking. And let's assume that October 12th, they decide we're going to do Bivol versus Better Biev. That's already done. We got that. But I got an idea. Let's do, and I'm not saying this is happening, I'm just throwing out a scenario. Let's do Shakur versus Zepeda. And then they think about it, and they hold hands for a minute. And then they're thinking, they're holding hands. And then they let go of their hands, and they say, yeah, let's do that. So they do Bivol versus Better Biev, Shakur versus Zepeda. And let's say they put Isaac Cruz, all 4'11" of them on the undercard. And then they put whoever else. And they stack the card from top to bottom. And they decide to put it in Saudi, right? What do they have to go up against on October 12th? If he decides he's going to put that card on in Saudi in the middle of the day, he's got to go up against Texas versus Oklahoma, fourth quarter, second half. He's got to go up against LSU versus Ole Miss. He's got to go up against, say, Alabama versus Tennessee. He's got to go up against college football. And this is what I'm saying is the American market has been conditioned to, over years, over decades, they've been conditioned to sit down on a Saturday and watch College Game Day from 8 to 11, and then from 11 to 2 in the morning. 11 in the morning to 2 in the morning on Sunday morning, they have wall-to-wall college football. And now with betting, the touch of our hands, we can bet on every game live. We can bet. And we've got all that in front of us. Every single game is televised. 60 plus games televised every Saturday. It's like a national holiday every Saturday during the fall. And that's what boxing's up against, because we've been programmed to sit down and watch that for year after year after year. And the same thing with the NFL on Sunday. So what Turki Al-Sheikh has to come in and do is say, we need a hard reset. I need to reset this whole thing. And it's not going to happen overnight. You need to do this for 5 years. You need to do this for 10 years before the market gets conditioned to say, oh, these two Russians that are fighting for undisputed, and this boring guy fighting this Mexican fighter who I heard is fun, but I've never seen fight, I'm going to turn that on instead of Texas versus Oklahoma. Or at least I'll put it in the corner on my TV over there. And then it has to be good. And then you have to watch it. And then you have to focus in, lock in on the complexity of the sport. And then he has to simplify that. He has to consolidate belts. He has to buy out sanctioning bodies and consolidate the sanctioning bodies. He has to do a ton of work. And then after he's done that work, he has to do it sustainably over 5-10 years for make this a functioning and growing sport. He can't just stop the bleeding. In order to get an ROI, a return on investment, he has to build the sport significantly, both short-term and long-term. Good luck. Good luck. And I'm not trying to be negative. I'm just telling you, like, that's the sad thing about where we're at in boxing is we see, just think of how, just think about for a second, compare and contrast how we think when we see a card versus what the American public, just casuals, think of when they see a certain card. We see Bivol better be of Shakur Zepeda. We like, oh my God. Oh my God. He continues to give me that. I'll hold his hand too. Yeah, I'll do it. Charge me. The casual market sees that and see two Russian guys. That's not going to sell in America. Who are they? I don't know who they are. What is this? And then Shakur, I saw him fight once or twice on ESPN. He put me to sleep. I never heard of the other guy. So that's where we're at. And there has to be an introduction into the market for all these guys. There has to be a complete reset. There has to be brand building on the front end. There has to be Jake Paul, Ryan Garcia type of brand building. These guys have to be on social media and just destroying their social media. 6 to 7 posts per day, Instagram. And a lot of these guys simply aren't doing it. Promoters aren't promoting. That's where we're at. So I know it's a roundabout answer to this question, but Bud versus Madrimov's good. It's a fine fight. I mean, to me, it's not really pay-per-view worthy. Main event. I liked it when Virgil versus Tim was on the undercard. I don't think Bud will ever be a star. I don't think he'll ever have big brand names and all that stuff behind him. But before I get into that, Bud versus Madrimov, what makes this fight interesting is he's moving up from 150 to 154. Bud had a 100% KO percentage at welterweight. I think it was 9-0 with 9 KOs. Just, he was an absolute killer at welterweight. He's been an absolute killer at every weight class, and he hasn't had that. He just had, like, Bud hasn't had that peer. He doesn't have a peer. He is a peerless guy. He walks into a room and he owns it. It's his. And he sticks his chest out and he lets you know, it's mine. It's mine. You got no shot here. And they tried to build Errol up as his peer for years, and we saw in the fight that he's not. Errol never was Bud's peer. Never was. He's not. He is not Bud's peer. He is not in the same class. They thought it was going to be this Hagler versus Hearns type thing, or this Four Kings type of scenario in which you had two guys who are on the same plane and they met in this great rivalry, and it's going to be a rematch. It's going to be this great, and there was never a rivalry there. Spence was never on his level. Neither was Porter. And Bud has never had someone, maybe Porter took him into fifth gear in the 11th round. Maybe you could say that, but there was never like a scenario in which I'm watching a Bud Crawford fight and I say, I think he's going to lose. It's just never happened. So the draw here is fourth weight class. And maybe this will be the weight class where Bud faces that resistance. Maybe this the weight class where a guy takes Bud there to where we're in the 7th round. And it's like, this is even. I don't know what's going to happen here. Not only is it even, this guy may have a little bit of momentum against him. It's the 10th round, and it's like, oh, Bud might be losing this fight. This is close. I don't know how the scorecards are going to go, and it looks like this guy's going to go to decision. Maybe Bud's a little hurt here. We've never had that. We've never had that. We've never seen it. And maybe 154 is the weight class where we see that. It's going to answer questions. So to answer your question, Chicano, that's some of the intrigue behind it, is it's new territory. When it comes to Canelo versus Berlanga, this isn't new territory. This is actually a new low. When it comes to Bud versus Madrimov, we're moving into uncharted waters here. We're moving into a scenario in which we have a new weight class. We've all said that if Bud loses, it'll be because he's taken on too much weight. He's fighting a guy who's too physical for him, too big for him. And possibly Madrimov's that guy, but likely not. Likely not, but we'll get an idea. We'll start to get an idea of, does Bud's power translate to 154? Because if not, then we might have something here. Then we might have something. If his power doesn't translate against Madrimov at 154, which I think it will, but if it doesn't, then Virgil Ortiz, Tim Tszyu, Jermell Charlo, who says he's coming back, Sebastian Fundora. How does Bud do against those guys? And on top of that, because it seems like they're trying to create this collision course, Turki Al-Sheikh with Bud, and they're going to make Canelo an offer, and Canelo's going to have to take it or refuse it, and we're not offering him another one. That's Turki Al-Sheikh speaking. And that's new territory for Canelo, by the way, because Canelo's used to wheeling and dealing and controlling the board, and Turki's telling him publicly negotiating and saying, you don't control anything. I'm going to tell you the offer, and you take it or leave it. That's what he's telling him. We'll see. But, and I got FanDuel at 7-1, so maybe BetOnline's 10-1. Fair enough. I'm getting lit up with text messages. But what I'll say is this. If Bud does face some resistance Saturday, we have to rethink the Canelo versus Bud thing. And we have to say, I want to see Bud stay at 154, because if he can't, if we're starting to see on Saturday that his power doesn't translate to 154, and maybe Madrimov's physicality and strength and size presents him some issues, even if Bud clearly wins, but you start to see that, yeah, I mean, Madrimov doesn't have anything that Canelo possesses, of course, and Canelo's 2 weight classes higher. I'm not so sure we want to see that fight. I'm not so sure there's value in that fight. I'm not so sure that we're headed in the right direction towards that fight, especially if Canelo's also fighting Berlanga. No momentum going into that fight. So why not just do Bud staying at 154 and Canelo staying at 168 and fighting the fights there, if Bud does not look extravagant? Because that's what, and look, this is news I got for the Bud super duper fans, because I'm a fan, but these are the super duper fans I'm talking to, is you've raised the bar so high at this point, and Bud's done it. And this is what we talk about, like Bud, Canelo, in a way, we expect different things of fighters like that. We expect different things of fighters like Usyk. They've raised the bar so high of themselves that when they do average things, it's like, So that's where Bud's at now. Coming off the Errol Spence fight, he can't say ring rust. He can't say new weight class, any of that. Especially with the super duper fans out there saying that he walks on water. He walks on water. He can't be touched. He destroys everything. I could even see him moving up to 175 and beating Dmitry Bivol. This is the type of stuff that's out there that people are saying. So if he goes into the Madrimov fight and looks ordinary, then we have to re-examine where we're at. And if a Canelo versus Bud fight should happen at 168. Because to me, it comes off as novelty-ish. And this is another question. It's like, if Bud does look average against Madrimov, what does Canelo do? How does Canelo react to it? I think Bud wins this fight, and I'm leaning decision. Just something tells me that Madrimov is going to go the distance here. Something tells me Bud's going to start off a little bit slow. Madrimov possesses some of the same things that Bud actually possesses. And I saw Chilltown Boxing talking about this earlier. He can switch hit. He's athletic. He has power, decent pop, 70% KO percentage. Not against great opposition. This is a big step up for him, but fought a guy like Kurbanov, stopped him. Athletic. He's an athletic fighter. So there's layers to this guy. So if Bud does what Bud normally does, and what Bud normally does is, except against Spence, and this is what another thing about Bud is when he turns it on, and he turned it on early against Errol. He said, I'm not messing around. But what he's done against, say, an Avanesian, right? A Mean Machine, is he will let those guys touch him up early in the fight in order to set traps and turn it into a fight, because that's where he wants it. But if you move up north too much and you start to get touched up a little too much early in the fight, and say Madrimov gets ahead a little early, and then all of a sudden the traps that you're setting are working, but they're not having the desired effect in that Madrimov is walking through them. Madrimov all of a sudden is walking through shots that Mean Machine, Avanesian, Sean Porter, Errol Spence did not. And maybe the traps do work. Maybe Bud goes in there and annihilates Madrimov. But, and this is why this is interesting at 154, is we have a new weight class. We have a bigger opponent, physically bigger. Questions are going to get answered here. Does he possess power at 154? Can he get away with some of those tactics he used at 135, 140, 147 at 154 against naturally bigger guys who can punch harder? Can he get away with it? Or does he have to fight a different way? Will he be willing to fight a different way? Because we know he's layered. I have to believe at this point that Bud's just Bud. He's special. He's out there with the wave cap, seek and destroy, like Marlowe on The Wire. And he's just a killer, and he's going to figure it out. I have to think that until it happens. I haven't seen any data supporting anything else. But what if Madrimov takes his shots early in that fight? What if Madrimov touches him up a bit early in the fight, as Bud will allow his opponents to do? Then Madrimov takes his shots, and then we've got a distance fight. What happens? And if this goes the distance, you're going to have people conditioned to seeing Bud knocking everybody out every fight. 100% KO percentage at welterweight, knocking everybody out. You're going to have those people who are conditioned to think that, saying, that's a disappointing performance. I don't really want to see him go up to 168 fight Canelo. And then that's when we're going to have to figure that out. And if that happens, that puts Canelo in a precarious spot, because the only other option out there currently that people would be satisfied with is Benavidez. So what do you do then? What do you do then? Is the money there for that fight, according to Canelo? Would he be happy with that? I don't know. But things will get answered, and then it's going to force, it's going to shape the narratives for the next couple months, because we have a month and a half before Canelo fights. So we're going to have a month and a half of narratives spinning off of this one fight with Madrimov. And if Bud looks good, then we've got the obvious. We got Canelo versus Bud in February is what it looks like. If Canelo takes the offer that he must take according to Turkey. We're not going to negotiate. We're going to send you one offer and you take it or leave it. It's like, okay, we'll see. But if not, then we've got a whole new narrative. Now we're back to Canelo versus Benavidez or bust is what we're back to. If Bud doesn't look great in this fight. Or perhaps they're bullheaded. And even though there's no momentum headed towards Canelo versus Bud, because Bud doesn't look great against Madrimov, and then Canelo, no matter how this goes, isn't going to look good fighting Berlanga. It just is what it is. So there's no momentum headed into a Canelo versus Bud fight if that happens, if that's the scenario. But I wouldn't put it past them, because look at where we're at. So it's a cluster, and we'll see. And this is what happens when you, this is what happens when weight classes aren't observed, and we're not doing fights that make sense. This is it can get muddy. It can get muddy. Boxing's power brokers are terrible, absolutely terrible. And we'll talk about this more. So tomorrow I'm coming on live at 2:30 Central, and Jay Chaudhry will be on at 3 o'clock Central, and I'll have him for about 30 minutes to talk about stuff like this and Riyadh and metrics and stuff like that, the business side and stuff he's seeing with power brokers, etc., and how things the landscape is drastically changed and how it will drastically change in the future. But um, boxing's power brokers have a terrible track record of marinating fights. There's evidence that they love marinating fights because they do it all the time, but there's also evidence now that um, the marination doesn't work. It doesn't work. It's ruined fights. Um, we go into fights with no momentum or backwards momentum, if that's even a thing. Fighters regressing as they go into fights. PBC has an absolutely terrible track record of that. And when I see the landscape this year, it's obvious that the PBC is in new territory where they don't have a budget, they can't function, and they have to show up a couple times quarterly, and it all has to be on pay-per-view. And apparently they're going to give us some free fights on the Amazon subscription. And we've seen the type of free fights they want to do, by the way. Plant versus McCluskey or whatever his name is, whatever the guy's name is, as a main event. So good luck with that. But everybody over there currently, it just seems like a waste to me. The pay-per-views they're putting on, they're not building these fighters. I mean, is Tank getting bigger? Is Canelo getting bigger, or is he losing his market share, market value? Was Tim Tszyu getting bigger? Is he getting bigger fighting on Amazon and PBC? I was told that Amazon had 27 gazillion trillion billion subscribers, and being that Amazon had a 20 trillion gazillion billion subscribers, that 20 gazillion bajillion trillion people were gonna have access to these fighters and see them fight and have access to marketing. They were all gonna see Tank Davis. They were all gonna see all this stuff, right? David Benavidez. And we're seeing the pay-per-view numbers, and we're seeing the quality they're putting on. We're seeing the press conferences that look like they're being held in a Grand Marriott ballroom. And like, what is this? And nobody's promoting anything. And it looks like they're just asleep at the wheel, everybody. And I'm like, what is this? What are they building? They're not building anything. They're not building. Why is David Benavidez fighting on an undercard? What is happening? I don't see the vision. I don't see the vision at all. So to me, if you're still over there, I'm like, what are you doing over there? What are you still doing over there? What are they offering you of value besides a high minimum? And if that's what you're still in it for, because you don't need to do anything else. I already have my legacy, so I can do whatever I want now. It's like, no. Maybe you can. Maybe you can get away with it. But at the end of the day, man, like, you'll shed your fans and your customer base if that's the what's in it for me? What's in it for me watching that? Why is that interesting? Especially when I have all these options. I can watch college football. I can watch the NFL. I can watch March Madness. I can watch all kind of things in between watching the good fights. I can go to the UFC. I can do all kind of things. Why am I here? Clarissa Shields. I heard this is what I'm told because I don't follow it, but I was told that there's 20 girls in a weight class, and more of them have losing records than winning records. And then I was also told that she fought at a weight and won 2 belts or 2 belts in 2 weight classes or something like that. And these dudes that, and not you, I'm saying, like, I see these dudes online on Twitter, especially. And I don't know what it is, but they try hard. They try very hard to lump the women in with the men in boxing. They put them on pound for pound lists together. Anytime you have fighter of the year, they try to make the female fighter of the year the fighter of the year. And it's like, no, they're 2 different sports, 2 different categories. It's just nauseating. And I watched the highlights of that, and I'm like, this is it. This is what y'all are getting, like, excited about, is her doing that to that girl that looks like she can't walk and chew gum at the same time. I don't know. And I had all kind of people coming after me, after me for just saying, being the least bit critical of Clarissa Shields. I don't know. I don't really get it. It is what it is. I'm not going to waste too much time on that. So I'll be back tomorrow, fellas, at 2:30 Central. See y'all then. God bless. Peace.